Imagine being 55 years old. You have spent decades working, raising children, paying bills, and then suddenly, you are handed a uniform and sent towards one of the most dangerous battlefields on earth. This is not a scene from World War II. It's happening right now in Russia-Ukraine war. There is a reason older men are becoming increasingly visible on both sides of this conflict. The answer is not simply patriotism. It's a combination of manpower shortages, military experience, money, conscription policies, and desperation. And as the war enters its fifth year, that problem is becoming harder to hide. When people hear about older soldiers, they often assume these men are being dragged from their homes. But the reality is more complicated. In Ukraine, men between 25 and 60 years are generally eligible for mobilization if they are medically fit and do not have an exemption. However, men over 60 are normally outside compulsory mobilization. But Ukraine's law allows people over 60 to serve voluntarily under specific conditions, including medical fitness and approval from military authorities. That means a man in his 50s can still find himself directly involved in this war, and some men beyond 60 are even choosing to serve.
Кількістю ми їх не здолаємо. Нам треба новітнє озброєння, і тільки таким чином ми можемо здолати ворога. Не кількістю.
Why? Because Ukraine is fighting a war where manpower has become one of its most valuable and scarce resources. As per independent sources, a total of 625 Ukrainian soldiers became casualty, including 150,000 killed in action. On the other side, Russia has a total casualty figure of 1.4 million people, including 500,000 killed in action.
First Strategic and International Studies reported Wednesday local time that around 450,000 Russian troops have been killed, with total Russian casualties, including those killed, wounded, or missing, reaching 1.4 million.
These countries don't simply need more weapons. They need more people capable of using them. Modern warfare has transformed and now is brutally expensive in human terms. Drones are everywhere, artillery can strike from kilometers away, mines can turn a field into a death trap, and soldiers can be targeted almost immediately after reaching the front lines. So this means that both Russia and Ukraine constantly need replacements, and that creates a terrifying equation. The longer the war continues, the more difficult it becomes to maintain the number of soldiers needed to keep fighting.
I would have commented on everything if I could, but you know what could happen to me if I did. I think that everyone understands that no one is supporting the war.
Ukraine has publicly acknowledged manpower challenges, while Russia has increasingly relied on recruitment campaigns and financial incentives rather than launching another nationwide mobilization. And this is where older men become important. Russia has millions of more people than Ukraine, but population size doesn't automatically translate into unlimited soldiers. The Kremlin learned that lesson in 2022. After battlefield setbacks, Russia announced a partial mobilization of around 300,000 reservists. The political reaction was enormous. Thousands tried to leave the country, public anxiety exploded, and since then, Moscow has tried to avoid repeating that experience.
So the mobilization is one of the reasons why I'm here.
The situation is what made me want to fly out.
Instead, Russia has relied heavily on contract recruitment, and the financial incentives can be enormous. In some regions, joining the military can offer bonuses and salaries that are life-changing compared with local incomes. For a 50-year-old man struggling economically, the decision can therefore become very different. It isn't necessarily, do I want to fight? Sometimes it becomes, can I afford not to? Recent reporting suggests that Russia is now struggling to recruit enough volunteers, while casualties remain extremely high. Independent estimates cited by recent reporting put Russian killed and wounded at more than 30,000 per month.
That Russia can recruit between 30 and 35,000 troops each month. The aim of Ukrainian operations has therefore been to cause more than that number of casualties.
Though the casualty figures are inherently difficult to verify independently, that recruitment pressure is increasingly reaching vulnerable groups, and according to recent reporting, authorities have used increasingly coercive methods in some cases, including detentions, workplace pressures, threats, and deception. So the older soldier isn't always a patriotic volunteer. Sometimes he's a man responding to economic pressure or fear of what happens if he refuses. There is another side to this story. A 50-year-old soldier may have something a 20-year-old recruit doesn't. That is, experience. A man who served in the military decades earlier may already understand discipline, weapons, military hierarchy, and battlefield stress. He may have spent years learning how to operate under pressure, and in a war where experienced personnel are increasingly valuable, that matters. The problem? Experience cannot completely defeat biology. A 55-year-old body does not recover like a 25-year-old body. Carrying equipment, running through trenches, living under artillery fire, operating drones for hours, going without proper food or sleep, all of it takes a physical toll. So older soldiers may bring experience, but the battlefield demands enormous physical endurance. For many older Ukrainian men, this war isn't about ideology alone, it's personal. Their homes may be nearby, their children may be fighting, their grandchildren may still be living in cities threatened by missiles and drones. For some, the calculation is brutally simple. If I don't defend my home, who will? That motivation can push people into military service longer after the age when they expected to ever wear a uniform again. And Russia has its own version of this story. Some older men enlist because of patriotism, some because of money, some because of military tradition, some because of pressure, and some because war has become one of the few available sources of income. Different motivations, same battlefield. This is the part many people miss. The Russia-Ukraine war is not just a contest of missiles, tanks, and drones. It is increasingly a contest of demographics. Russia has a much larger population. Ukraine doesn't have that luxury.
From the outset, Ukraine has been at a disadvantage, outnumbered and outgunned by a country with a population 4 times its own.
Ukraine must therefore be extremely careful about how it uses its available manpower. Every experienced soldier lost is difficult to replace. Every trained infantryman matters, every drone operator matters. Every commander with years of battlefield experience also matters. And this is why age is becoming less important than it was at the beginning of the war. The question is no longer simply how old are you? It is, are you physically capable, medically fit, trained, and willing to fight? Because if this war continues for years, the average age of the soldiers could become increasingly important. Young men are not an unlimited source. Neither country can endlessly replace casualties without consequences. Russia is already facing recruitment difficulties, while Ukraine faces a much smaller population base and its own severe manpower challenges. Recent reporting indicates Moscow is trying to maintain recruitment without another politically risky mass mobilization, and that creates a vicious cycle.
Flashy billboards in Moscow are labeling young drone pilots as the new indispensables. The recruitment campaign is hoping to woo students across Russia to join drone units fighting in Ukraine.
More casualties, more recruitment, more pressure, more experienced soldiers lost, more inexperienced replacements sent forward, and eventually older men become part of the equation. Not because they are necessarily the best soldiers, but because the war has consumed so many younger and more readily available recruits that every physically capable person becomes increasingly valuable. So when you see a 50-year-old or even a man over 60 in uniform in Ukraine or Russia, don't immediately assume you know why he is there. He might be defending his family, he might be protecting his country, he might have military experience, he might be chasing a massive financial incentive, he might have been pressured into signing a contract, or he might simply believe that after everything that has happened, there is no other choice. So that's what makes this war so different from the conflicts many people remember. It isn't only consuming weapons, it isn't only consuming territory, it's consuming generations. And the longer the war continues, the more likely it becomes that the battlefield will be filled not just with young recruits, but with fathers, grandfathers, veterans, and men who never imagined they would ever have to fight again. Because when a war lasts long enough, eventually age stops being a shield, and that may be one of the clearest signs of just how deep the Russia-Ukraine manpower crisis has become. If you want more impartial analysis on geopolitics, buried history, intelligent and untold market truths, where power, money, and secrets collide, then do support our channel. I am your host Z, and I will see you in the next video.